Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainke.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Business Bites Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Brainke, and today I am joined with Jonathan George, who is the CEO of Unleash Your Rockstar. He has spent the past 20 years creating rockstar brands for celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers with over 150 million online followers. I brought him on because I love his belief of success is 20% talent and the other 80% is how you develop that talent, the confidence you have when you use that talent, and the way you brand that talent to shine. Today, we're going to be talking about confidence and 2 simple ways you can get to being confident. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I am excited for this interview. It's really great to have a voice into confidence and just how you display yourself. I feel like we really get wrapped up a lot in what is the best way to have visual assets and the right sales copy. But in order to have good visual copy and assets and everything, you have to have confidence behind that to put it out there.
100%. You know, the biggest thing, anytime I'm working with somebody, the first thing that we're going to have to go through is the fear. And when there was, you probably heard the term imposter syndrome, and that is just that fear of not being good enough, feel like you're comparing your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 10, and it's just that fear of constantly, who am I? Why me? Why am I going to show up and do this when there's already 1,000 people doing what I love? And confidence is key. You have to have confidence to step fully into your power. So 100%, it's all about the confidence.
Well, before we dig into like the 2 simple things that you recommend for the listeners to do to implement and build confidence, let's talk a little bit about your background. But I specifically also want to know, have you always been confident in your entrepreneurship journey?
No. It's so crazy. I mean, I've been a confident kid. I was raised, my dad's a pastor, so I was raised in the church. I was on the platform my entire life. So I always had a sense of great confidence in that. But, for me, in 2000, I moved to Los Angeles for my singing career, and I was going to be a singer and an artist. I was a grand champion on Ed McMahon's Next Big Star.
Well, hey.
And I know, right? Whoop, whoop. It's better to be a has-been than a never was, I always say. But I had a record deal on the table. It was like I had just released a single. I was working on my album, and I was like the pinnacle of my career. It was like, this is what I'd been working for. And literally, as when Google first came out, they Googled my name, they discovered that I was gay. And, we think now, they're like, really? That's an issue? Yeah, back then in 2000, it was a major issue. And they retracted the contract. My team went into this whirlwind to get me married, to change my music, the way I dressed, my style. And all I heard was, you're not good enough. That's the only words that I heard. And I couldn't see through anything. I didn't understand how to show up powerfully as who I was and how to make that work. And, I'd already spent, my childhood being bullied for, being the creative kid and not playing sports in Texas. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're supposed to do. And
Right.
I defied those rules and was the super creative kid. And then, my dad being a pastor, I was so spiritually abused, not out of meanness or ugliness. I want to make sure that's clear, but because that's truly how they believe, that you can't go to heaven. I could never be blessed. And so all I kept hearing was through my life, you're not good enough. And so, here I'm sitting 26 years old and I have all of this going for me, but it's all been stripped from me and it's in a blink of an eye. And I had to come to terms with, if I can't be authentically me, then I wasn't going to show up in the world. I wasn't going to get married. And it was at that point where I just said, no more. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to live authentically me. I'm not going to live a life of lies. And so that's when I began my entrepreneurial journey. to creating rock star brands. And I wanted to help people be able to really unleash who they
Mhm.
are inside rather than trying to change them and make them something different than what they were or that they
Mhm.
are. So that was, and even in through my career, you know, that that same thing I didn't realize that kept popping its ugly head is that you're not good enough because I don't know of anybody in LA that does what I do, especially in the entertainment industry and what I've done for so many young superstars. And so I kept going, I should be there. I should be there. And I could see where I needed to be, but I kept hitting these glass ceilings,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize until last year I went and got a master's practitioner's license in neurolinguistic programming. That's NLP.
Hmm.
Um, and so because I wanted some more tools to really help people
Mhm.
and through my process to help overcome fears and different things in their life. And I realized that I had that same fear. And my coach went straight back and took that fear right out of me. It was unbelievable. And so I think it's a continuous process that we have that I'm not good enough kind of feel where we don't feel like we're confident because it's really all comes from the fear of judgment, whether that's
Mhm.
self-judgment or that you're going to be judged by others.
Well, and I feel like as a society as a whole, even like the normal vanilla, hetero looking family unit, I still feel like even in context of that. So we're just talking like the normal, not even having situations and extremes depending on people's life circumstances. I feel like nowhere on the scale are we really taught to be confident in who we are. You look at all these Pinterest graphics and Instagram posts, and it's like, you go girl and all this stuff. But I'm like, but are we really teaching that to ourselves, and are we really
Right.
teaching that to our friends and our family members, whether it's kids or your partner or
One
whatever? And
hundred.
I think that's a big thing. How would you recommend to entrepreneurs listening that maybe realizing, I don't have immense insecurity issues or security issues, but I definitely don't feel confident. I mean, how would you direct and steer them into developing this confidence?
Well, you said something very clear about something that we're not taught about
Yeah.
confidence. And where it really comes from is the lack of understanding who we are. We don't do self development work as kids. It's not taught
Agreed.
in school, and it
Mhm.
all begins with the self development. And I always
Mhm.
say, um, you know, I overcome average with personal branding. And the depth of your brand will depend on the depth of your goal. So, if you're an entrepreneur and you're heading out into the world and into the space, you just need to realize that number one, your where you are will always be further along than someone else.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
don't compare yourself with what somebody else is. And I always say this is that everybody thinks that they need to be Christina Aguilera, but it's okay to be Britney Spears. And people think that Christina is the superior talent, but Britney has more accolades. She's worth more money. She has more number one hits. And she's still rocking it out, and it's okay to be Britney Spears, and not to worry about the full having to be like this the person that you look up to. So if I'm looking up to Tony Robbins, well, Tony Robbins has many years ahead of me.
Mhm.
I can't worry about what Tony Robbins has. I've got to worry about what I've got, because what I've got right now is going to be way more than what other people have.
And it's
So
okay if you're Britney Spears shaving her head and walking through a dirty gas station barefoot. You can come back from that. She did.
yes, you can, and it's and what, to be quite honest, is I know you want me to share with people the two steps that you can take right now, and I'll let you lead when you want me to share that. But one of the things is to share your story with
Yeah.
your people. Don't shy away from your past. Your past. You will look at the number one influencers online, and they are the people who are authentic. They show their vulnerability. They're real. They just say, "This is the way it is. This is what I'm going through," and that's the people that you want to follow. That's the reason why we loved MTV when all of the reality shows came out,
Mhm.
because we felt like we were seeing the real people. And, it's okay to have a past, really is, and use it.
No, that's great. Honestly, that's why I was asking what I was asking, because I'm looking at this kind of in two parts, right? We have one end of the spectrum where a lot of people have circumstances in their life. They have what you would perceive to be like hard hitting stories you can maybe see in a movie. And, I feel like those that are willing to get in touch with that, share that, do become those top influencers. And of course, getting over and getting to the point where you can be vulnerable and share that is a big aspect. And that's where some of the confidence comes in. But I'm also thinking on the other side, for many who don't even think that they have a life story, I always say you have a story. It may not be as hard hitting as the person down the street. So how would you speak to both sides of that? Those on one end of the extreme who have a story and are scared to be vulnerable to share it, and then the other side of those that feel like they don't have a story, so they don't feel confident in showing up to tell it.
Well, the thing is that I 100% understand not being confident in sharing your story, because of, me. I mean, I told my story right from the beginning,
Hmm.
right? And for that reason, I do that because I want people to understand that I understand what it feels like to not have confidence. I know what it feels like to feel like you're not good enough, because people look at me, they meet me, I'm super confident, I'm full of energy and life, but I have a past where, like, I struggled. There were times where I thought about suicide. I had anxiety. I had depression. I didn't know how to show up. And so, here I was 3 years ago, and I'm starting to speak out in public because there's no greater way to build your business than getting out and speaking, using podcasts, doing, all these tools that
Hmm.
are at our fingertips now. And I was like, my coach was like, "You have to share your story." And I was like, "Man, I was always the gay guy. I don't want to be the gay guy. I don't want to talk about that. I just want to be the guy." And until I became uh, really real with it and began to be able to tell my story where I was comfortable, it opened up so many doors for people to relate. My story's not going to be the same as yours,
Hmm.
but we've all felt the same way of you're not good enough, or feeling like you're less than. We're lacking confidence, and so I want to tell people, tell your story. And here's the thing: is that I had a client of mine on America's Got Talent, and she was by far the most talented on the show. And her name is Michaela Phillips. She was the Golden Buzzer winner from Heidi
Oh, how
Klum.
fun.
Yeah, and phenomenal talent, phenomenal gift. But she got up on there, and the first thing that they do is tell your story.
Hmm.
Well, she got up there, and there was a doctor who, it was fostered all these kids on his spare time. There was another little girl who gave up. Her parents gave up all of their life and to move to the States so she could fulfill her dream. And then there was this Michaela who they just made her seem like the most
Hmm.
easy life, most easy, comfortable being. And she does have a great life. Her dad's a fireman. Her mom's a teacher. But everybody has a story. Everybody has something that they can talk about. It doesn't have to be a massive struggle.
Hmm.
It can be just a story that people can relate to you on some level. And I after she performed, I just said, "Listen, Michaela, you will not go on to the finals, and I'm going to tell you why. Is because they didn't tell your story."
Hmm.
And right there, if there is anything greater in realizing that when you own your story and you can share it with people,
Hmm.
it makes an instant connection to people. It makes them like you. It makes them trust you. It makes them drawn to you, and it just creates that trust. And
Hmm.
so I say, take on that story, and even if it doesn't need to be traumatic. I didn't. My story's not trauma. I wasn't abused. I wasn't molested. I wasn't. I didn't have some trauma in that aspect. But here's the deal: pain is pain.
Hmm.
What you have to come through to get where you need to go, it doesn't matter. We all have a story of our our past, our path to get to where we're going. So share it.
So when I'm talking to my own students or clients and they're like, well, I don't have a story, you're talking about doesn't have trauma or a major struggle. Well, there's a lot of people out there who also don't have trauma, major struggles. So they can't always identify with these industry leaders with these great stories. They may be looking to connect with someone that has a regular story. They want to know that you're a regular person. So wherever you fall in that spectrum, I still encourage to share it. And obviously you have to balance that with how much privacy you want to have, how much you want to put out there. But definitely, I always encourage finding like 3 to 5 pillars within your story and who you are, in conjunction to what you offer, but for them to create that connection with you and be like, we're talking about confidence, but be confident in those elements of your story to put it out there.
Real, and here's the thing, Rachel, is that if people will understand that a story doesn't, again, does not need to be traumatic. It does not need to have some horrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's pivotal moments in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if I would have started my story, I mean, I was in college. I was I was a music education major, and I spent my whole entire life in church scene, and I didn't think that there was any way of making money at music other than being a teacher, because it was a life of servitude, right? We sang for the service, and so we never made money off of it. But I had a teacher. He was the head of the department. He looked at me and said, Jonathan, he was like, why are you going to be teaching? You could be making a killing being an amazing performer. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I was like, you mean I can really make a living at this? And he is the one that opened up the door for my mind to go out into the world. And I performed professionally for, 5 or 6 years, just straight. And none of that would have happened. I would have never done any of the stuff that I'd done had he not been the one who poured that into me. And so it was a pivotal moment in my life. And now I could build off several different things off that. So my point in that is that we all have pivotal moments in our life. There's something that changes us, that switches us. There's a time of contemplating on something, and something ignites us into the next level. So we all have a story, every single person.
Yeah, and when I've been sitting here while you've been talking, thinking about, is there something else we can call it other than a story? Just because I feel like it has such a connotation to the whole traumatic grief and rising from the ashes type of mentality, when it could just be like you're talking little points of personal development and growth during life.
Yeah. Well, in my process, I just call it the hero's journey. And, it's one of those things that I think we do get trapped up either in the fact of, oh, I don't want to tell that, or I don't really have anything to tell. And that goes to show that you don't really value the things that have gone on in your life. Mm-hmm. Or you're not realizing the beauty in your life. You're not slowing down and saying, oh, wow, oh, that actually did happen. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And through this process that, I take people through, it really opens them up. And it's incredible to see what happens when you start understanding and uncovering these vital pillars that are happening in your life that are really sounding boards for where you are right now. And it's just amazing when that happens for people, when they uncover that and they discover what that is. And it's just a matter of going through your hero's journey of your life and realizing, who was that person that made mm-hmm. an impact in me? What did they say to me? And or even sitting there watching somebody talk that inspired mm-hmm. you. What inspired you to get to where you are right now? What do you listen to on a daily basis? What was that one quote that you heard that just ignited you? So there's so many things that you can you dig into. It's just you've got to do some digging.
So what would you say to those that are sitting listening going, oh, that's awesome, you had encouragement for performing and all this, but I only have people in my life, and you can't necessarily cut out family members. Maybe you could.
Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can, girl. Yeah, you can.
Well, I was trying to be nice, but what do you do in those situations where those that you are close to you, or maybe even not close to you, are giving you negative feedback, negative, no, you shouldn't go perform. That's too risky. Go teach because that's safer.
Okay, so number one, I am rebellious. So if you're not rebellious, get a little bit of a rebellious spirit. For anybody who tells you you can't, show them how you can 3 different ways while you're shooting them the finger and giving them a big hug.
Yeah.
Be rebellious against that, but also realize the only way that you can get somewhere is surrounding yourself
Yeah.
with people who believe in you 100%. Because again, we're talking about confidence. You need to have confidence, and if somebody's telling you no, then all of a sudden what's going to start happening, you're going to start second guessing yourself. You're going to begin to, like, now it's one thing to have somebody like my father who just said, always is pouring wisdom and saying, son, you got to be careful, you got to think about this, you got to be thinking about these things. That's not somebody telling you no. That's somebody making you really think about your steps. But you need to surround yourself. There's a reason why they say iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
If you surround yourself with greatness, you will have greatness. And my dad always told me, son, if you hang around shit long enough, you're going to start smelling like it.
Yep.
You're going to start drawing the flies. And so that is, you've got to think about that. Only surround yourself around people who believe in you or doing the same things as you. Getting in groups as entrepreneurs, I'm telling you, it's a lonely road. It's long hours. And if you can get within a group of people that share your same vision, that share your same interest, man, all of a sudden it's like you're growing at such a greater rate. Did you know that a diamond takes how many millions of years to create, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a perfect environment, under the right heat, under the right pressure, you can grow a diamond within weeks that is bigger, shinier, clearer, and more beautiful in just a matter of weeks under the right kind of pressure. So it goes to show, do you want to take a million years and hang around negativity, or do you want to get it done in a few weeks by hanging out with, or years, depending on what it is that you're doing, by hanging out with greatness and being underneath that right influence?
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things that I have struggled with the last few years during my own entrepreneurship journey is I've reached a level that it's been harder to find people. Well, this is what I originally was thinking, that it was harder to find people that are at the same level as me. Because in my mind was I had to be surrounded with people. I'm not just talking characteristics. I'm talking they had to be earning the same. They had to, have the same perspective when it came to how to run a podcast or your business or whatever. And it kind of really trapped me from potential opportunities, just from like the hive mind mentality of just getting to be able to talk and get differing perspectives, in conjunction with seeing the ambitiousness and the encouragement and the confidence also created. But I had blocked myself because listening to you just now, it's like, yeah, I can go out and get that. But then I was putting my own restrictions on it that further restricted me almost into inactivity.
What do you think was the restrictions that you were putting on? Why do you think you put those on?
Because I think at the time, trying to be so logical, it's like, well, if you want to get from point A to point B, then you have to have someone that's driving in the same car as you. But I actually even found this morning, before us recording this podcast, that's not true. In
At
fact,
all?
I
Yeah.
ended up getting into a program, and I have spent a good chunk of the year going, I'm too advanced for this, blah, blah, blah. But the biggest issue was because I wasn't willing to stop and realize there's alternate methods of transportation. And I was able to get really clear and very confident on some changes I needed to make. And honestly, it was from some people who weren't in that list of qualifications, air quotes, you can't see me, that I thought they
Right.
needed to have in order to be the ones to surround myself with.
Right. And that's amazing because, again, it's that Brittany versus Christina. There are many
Mhm.
ways to get to where you need to go. And, like you said with my quote, it's not about the talent. It's not about the skill set. It's not about how you necessarily do it. It's in the way in which you do it. It's the confidence you have when you use that talent. It's how you develop it, and it's how you brand it.
Mhm.
And those are the most powerful tools that you can have. And I think a lot of times when we get within a group, you have to be really careful, because I paid $25,000 to be a part of this group that's really it's blown me up just in so many ways because I've never had coaches before. And so this was the first time I've really had coaches. And it has blown me up so big. But I mean, I lost myself because I began to second guess everything that I was doing. You know what I mean? That can happen. So, and it's all right to take a year and dig up the soil and marinate it and, you know, mix it up with a little bit of manure and, you know what I mean? Like do all those things that you need to do and then begin to, like, once you got it done, start watering that sucker and watch it grow. But it's okay. I mean, I really actually past 3 years I've been marinating and growing and shifting and changing. And it wasn't until really this year that I was like, oh my God, what I've been trying to do is this, you know? And so because, you know, I love self-development so much, but I don't want to be a self-development coach. I don't want to do that. I love branding. But I didn't realize that branding, all my clients are so successful, not because of their abilities, but because of the course that I put them through to understand who they are, how to show up so they have unshakable confidence in themselves while showing up authentically them. And when you do that, it's what we call the X factor. It's what we call the it factor. When they walk in the room, they're just confident. It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. Now, there are some people who have that, but that's not likable.
Some can take it to the extreme.
Yeah. But, you know, but I'll knock their feet from underneath them. I'm real about it. I mean, I'm like a drill sergeant when it comes to, you know, how you show up in the world. But, you know, when people understand who they are, then they can show up really with that unshakable confidence, that it factor. And that's just, there's nothing sexier as an entrepreneur who can walk into a room and into a space and say, hey, yeah, I'm Jonathan George. I'm CEO of Unleash Your Rockstar, and my clients have over 150 million online followers. And, you know, to be able to say that with just confidence and just realness, not cockiness or arrogance, but because trust me, tomorrow, everything could be swiped out from underneath me. You know what I mean? Just, it's just one of those things. So it just keeps you grounded and humble. But to have that confidence to go, yes, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I do it. And it just makes for a very, very confident entrepreneur. And that's who I want to work with. I don't want somebody who baffles around.
No, agree. But what I'm going to do, you keep mentioning this course in all your resources, guys. I'm going to stick this onto the episode show notes page, link all of it there so that you can take a look at Jonathan's stuff. One of the things that I want to throw out here is I think it's easy as an entrepreneur, especially in the very beginning. You think, well, I'll get confidence as I go on. And I think it needs to be the other way around. Just like the examples you gave about the diamonds and, you know, in the right environment and circumstances, you've got to gain the confidence in order to get the success. It doesn't come success, then confidence.
No, not at all. I mean, there are some people, you know, there's many ways to getting somewhere. But what happens along that journey for people who don't know who they are is that they step on a lot of toes. They don't understand their values. They don't understand what their really true mission is. They don't understand where they're going, how they're getting there. And they burn a lot of bridges. And I'm somebody who believes in maintaining relationships. It's very important to me. And so, you know, in order to maintain great relationships is understanding who you are, right? And so that part of this whole journey is there's so many parts to us. There's like unlayering of an onion, you know what I mean? And there's so much that could be, a lot of times we show up in our fears. And when we show up in our fears, what does that do? That causes distrust. It causes us to, people not to like you. I can remember my assistant, she was my project manager for 8 years. And she said, she'd be like, oh, I can't stand that person. I was like, listen, what you don't like is the insecurity that they're showing up in. Because that person has beauty in them. It just is not showing up. And it was amazing to watch once that fear was released and that insecurity was released, that how lovable that person became. And how much more successful that person became. And, you know, so it's key to taking out that fear taking out the insecurities, taking out that, start sawing off some of those rough edges so we can smooth them down so they're not so offensive. And, I know that when we're talking about the two things that you could do right now, and I would love to jump into that because it kind of leads away, is that number one is understanding what your superpowers are. Every one of us have superpowers. And you put the link in your show notes. I've got a free way for people to go on and look how to do that.
Yeah, I'll stick that there.
And understand your superpowers. And this is not skill sets. This is not like a talent, like you're some brainy business person, or you can read numbers and calculate, what 1,055,000 times, another great number, and you can just calculate it. We're not talking about your intelligence or your just your talent. I'm talking about personality, things about yourself. That, when I moved to Hollywood, I didn't know anybody. I literally came here, did not know one single person. And I used my gifts to be able to penetrate the walls of Hollywood and create incredible relationships with people, because I'm a people person, and I know what I'm a relationship maker. Love is one of my greatest strengths. Gratitude is another one of my strengths. So with those things, man, I would go in and I would create incredible relationships that really got me through so many hoops and through so many doors. And so when you understand really what your greatest assets are, then you can show up more powerfully, even when you don't feel like, ooh, I don't really know how to do this, but you know what? I'm going to show up in this way, and I'm going to say, yes, I can do it confidently, right? Because you know that what your gifts are, that you can go very confidently forward with that. And so understanding that is one of the most powerful aspects. And the other thing is understanding your flaws. So, and this is what I call being flawsome, is understanding your flaws and still being awesome, right? So your flaws are, we have to think there are flaws that are going to destroy you, like addictions, and things like that. Or there's just minor flaws like being late. So flaws can run a big gamut of things. And it's just like if you went to put on a pair of Gucci shoes and you're like, hey, I just paid, $1,000 for these shoes. I'm wearing these high heels out. And 10 minutes into wearing the shoe, there's something in the toe that starts digging into your toe and making you cramp. That shoe's not going to stay on very long. And you may take a picture for the gram or TikTok, but they're going to be off real fast, and they're going to be in the back of your closet. You're not going to wear them again. So, so there's different kinds of flaws that we have. But the thing is that you need to be real with your flaws. You need to take ownership of them and not hide from them. Take Demi Lovato, for instance. Demi Lovato, I love her so much. And she just says what it is. She's like, I've got, drug addictions. I have, eating disorders. She's, deal with anxiety and depression. She just lays it out there. Number one, she takes ownership, so she doesn't allow the press to take ownership of anything. She completely disables everybody, and it makes us just love her that much more. And to realize, say, hey, this is somebody who's really struggling, being real with things and sharing it, and we hear it in her songs and her music. Another one of my girls that I developed, she started with me at 11 years old, and her name is Harper Gruzins. And Harper had just sang, and she was if you look it up, the world's worst national anthem, it will be her.
Aww.
And on YouTube, yeah, she was devastated. Super talented little girl, but it was just a really bad situation where nobody told her how to handle herself in this situation. They didn't give her the right tools. And so she sounded like a drunk 11-year-old singing the national anthem. And it devastated her, and she wanted to quit singing. And so I worked with her, got her to take ownership of that and to use her superpowers to overcome it. Because she's humorous, she's so hysterical, and she's a big person, big personality. So she ran from it. She's like, Jonathan, I don't want to talk about it. I said, listen, if you don't talk about it, it is going to be always the thing that you're going to face. And if you don't take ownership of it, then other people are going to use it against you. And so she showed up on American Idol for her auditions. And what do you think the first thing that they showed was? Her world's worst national anthem. And she didn't make it onto top 10. Harper Grace is what she goes by on there if you look her up. But she was the number one watched video of the year. And so they brought her back final night to perform with the top 3.
Phenomenal.
That is the power of taking ownership of situations, and flaws can be bad situations that have happened in your life too. You know what I mean? Like, that's just taking ownership of situations, bad situations, things in your life. Like, if you're leading a team and you're CEO and you're leading your team and you are like trying to control and micromanage everything, when you don't have the abilities and power to even do what you're trying to do, it makes your team they can't stand you. They don't trust you. They can't stand you because you're leading with fear rather than saying, hey, this is my weakness. I'm not good at this. Who on the team wants to take ownership of it? You are not only making people go, oh, wow, he just was honest about about not having the ability to do this. And number 2, you're allowing your team to step up into their power and to feel like they're important, because we all want to feel seen. We all want to feel like, again, we want to have that confidence because we can show up in our power. And so it's a very powerful thing. So understanding your flaws and being flawsome, those 2 things right there will catapult you so much further in your life.
I love it. I love it. This has been one of the greatest episodes. I've been taking notes over here, not just to put in the show notes, but for my own usage. I love this. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking your time and coming on, talking about this. Everyone listening, please head over to the show notes. You guys can take a look at all the links of all Jonathan's amazing stuff. And I think we're going to need you to have to come back for a part 2, because this was just so great.
I love it.
Wonderful foundation for so many things in business.
Yeah. And my book comes out, Unleash Your Rockstar, comes out in September, and you can join the wait list, and I'll probably be sending it out, giving people free copies of it who are on the wait list, just because I appreciate them. And so, please go support the book. But it's going to be about diving deep into this stuff. I love it.
Are you going to do an audiobook too?
I am.
Yes.
For the people like me.
Yeah.
I need audiobooks. I'm a slow reader. Dear God.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. And everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business Bites podcast. Please make sure to jump into the Business Bites Facebook group. We're going to have a thread, as always, dedicated to this episode. I'll also link extra stuff there, as well as letting y'all know when Jonathan's book is live. But go ahead and get on the list first so that you can be in queue to get it and to be able to unleash your rock star.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.